Good day, and welcome back to this 15th edition of lectures on the principles of macroeconomics. Today, we're going to be talking about employment and unemployment statistics and where they come from. So, uh, this is going to be very important when we build our little model of the macroeconomy. Uh, And we need to also talk about what we mean by full employment. So that's in topic 15. The data and how it's gathered is in topic 14. So I have already pulled up the PowerPoint for these two. I've taken them together. Maybe I'll break 15 off and redo it on what is full employment. Um, But basically, we're going to start who are the unemployed, and also we'll take a look at the employed. But if you add employed to unemployed, and we're going to be defining what is meant by being unemployed and what is meant by being employed in a moment. If you add them together, you get something called the civilian labor force. Now, if you add together the people in the civilian labor force, employed plus unemployed, there are a lot of other people in the population, not including people under 16, in the armed forces or institutionalized. But those other people, then, other than that, will be not in the labor force. So if we add together the labor force and not in the labor force, we get the civilian non-institutional population, uh, 16 years and older. And if we add everyone under 16, persons in the armed forces and institutionalized people to the civilian non-institutional population, we get the total population, okay? So let's begin with a discussion of where this data on employment and unemployment come from, and it is the current population survey. Um, we're going to be looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics FAQs about how employment and unemployment are estimated. So I think let's go take a look at that right now. I've pulled these up. I think I have them right here. So here is the page from the CPS Current Population Survey, Frequently Asked Questions. I went to all FAQs. Here they are. And so basically, the statistics come from uh, a survey done by the Census Bureau on a monthly basis. Uh, the current population survey started out of the Works Projects Administration, which is part of the response to the Great Depression in the 1930s, and it started in 1940, pretty much right before the start of World War II, or at least the United States participation in that war. So let's go take a look at the methodology. I pulled this out into I think this is it. Oh, this is a different survey. Where is the methodology? Here we go. So I had to go to the Census Bureau to get the methodology, since it is a Census Bureau who does the survey every month. And basically, what I wanted to show, and maybe we can get this pin going, and it's in red already, is that it consists of 60. I had this. Yeah, let's go with the red. 60,000 occupied households are surveyed every month. So I don't know how many people there are per household, but assuming there are two, if you had 60K times 2, you're going to have at least 120,000 people per month in this survey. And this is important because based upon what they do, what they are measuring, it gives a high degree of accuracy according to the law of large numbers and in statistics. The current surveys about who you're going to vote for in the upcoming national election are only based on around 2,000 people. And so there's a large error that can be assumed with that survey. In this one, oh gosh, what is let's go take a look at what the unemployment rate is right now. Bureau of Labor Statistics, there we go. Let's go, come on. Let's go take a look at the national unemployment rate and okay, labor force statistics from the current population survey. Unemployment rate, let's take a look at it. Retrieve data. Oh heck, let's take this back to 2000. Go. And yeah, let's include the graphs. What the heck? Wow. So you can see here when the let me see. Let me draw this. I don't know why that turned blue, but you see the unemployment dropped to a low level right before the election in 2008, and then rapidly increased. That's the Great Recession, the Great Financial Recession, 2008, 9, and then we slowly recovered. The unemployment rate dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped to historically low levels at the beginning of 2020 this year. And then with the coronavirus, you can see it peaked way up here. So you can see the unemployment rate due to the coronavirus was much greater than during the Great Recession of 2008, 9, and 10. So the most recent unemployment rate was 8.4%. We can see how low it dropped. Yeah, 3.5%. That was an historic low unemployment rate. And basically, you know, President Trump probably is very unlucky in this because if this type of economy had proceeded to the election, he would have been, well, not guaranteed to win, but with that low of an unemployment rate 6 months before an election, all incumbents in the past U.S. history have won. So bad luck on his part, eh? Well, anyway, it's 8.4% in, let's see, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So this is August of 20. And what I wanted to say is when they say 8.4%, they say it's really 8.4% plus or minus 0.1%. I believe it's at 95%. At 95% confidence level. So we can be 95% sure that the actual unemployment rate is somewhere in 8.3 to 8.5% level. Okay, So, yeah, the margin of error is very small. Okay. Here I pulled up the latest opinion polls about who's going to win the upcoming election. And you can see in these that Vice President Biden is ahead of President Trump by 6 percentage points, which is outside the margin of error here. But this is basically about 2,000 people are participating versus, for the current population survey, approximately 120,000. So this is going to be much more accurate. All right. So Biden has 48% of people say they're going to vote for him, but this is at plus or minus 5% at 90% confidence. All right. So, there's no overlap, though, of course, these presidential election surveys have, historically, there have been errors in them because of changes right before the election in the Truman election versus Dewey in 48. That oftentimes gets a picture in an American history book with Truman holding the headline from Chicago Tribune saying Dewey won. But in the last minute, many people switched over to Truman. And in the last election, these surveys missed how people are going to vote. And people are saying it's because, because people don't want to tell the surveyors the truth about who they're going to vote for. And when you have such a small number, that can have a huge impact on these surveys. I know people who say they will not participate in these surveys. So that's another problem, is that maybe if you have a lot of people who won't participate in them and they're all of a given political party or behind a candidate, or most of them are, that will skew these surveys also. And I think from the 2016 election, the problem they had was that exactly, I can't remember the exact data, but when they looked into the surveys and why they missed it, it was like 60 to 65% of the respondents were Democrat. So I don't know if that is a representative sample or not, but it does seem to weight it for the Democratic candidate. Oh well, this this survey does not have that problem, and basically, some people may want to lie about whether they're employed or not employed, but it turns out when they study this that it's very small number of people will say they are working when they're not, and it seems to be counterbalanced by and I don't know why people would do this with people who say they're not working when they are. So, huge survey, pretty accurate, and let's just talk about it. 60,000 households. So, field work is conducted during the calendar week that includes the 19th of the month. The questions refer to activities during the prior week, that is, the week that includes the 12th of the month. Households from all 50 states in the District of Columbia are in the survey for 4 consecutive months out of 8, and then return out So in 4, out 8, back in for 4. So that's 16 months in all. Half the time they're being surveyed before leaving the sample permanently and having the same probability as someone else to be some other household to being included. How many households are there? I'm not sure. I think there's probably, and here I'm just taking this off the top of my head, 130 million households in the United States. So basically, you would have 60,000 over 130 million. Let's see, there's 4. There's 4. So that would equal 6 over 6 over 13,000 is your probability of being drawn into the survey in any given month. Pretty low. I've only known one person who participated in all my years of teaching. So to be eligible, individuals must be 15 years of age, though they only are interested in people 16 and over. And the questionnaire is completely computerized, which I think they mean the representatives have like a laptop or a tablet, and they can mark off the information on the computer. They use telephone interviews and face-to-face interviews, okay? And the telephone interviews are done from Jeffersonville, Indiana, or Tucson, Arizona. And they do this for 60,000 households. Hey, let's remember one thing, let's come back to this, is that the CPI, had 2 basic surveys in one. I guess they had 24,000 in one year and 24,000 in another year to establish the basket. So that's 48,000 households. Then as far as the data go, they collect 80,000 prices per month. And that seems bigger, but I don't think it's not going to be bigger than 120K, but they're both very big surveys, okay? And the Census Bureau uses the current population survey to ask all sorts of questions on other subjects of interest, including, you can see family size, tobacco use, computer use, voting patterns, number of bathrooms in the house, square footage of the house, number of automobiles, kind of automobiles, all sorts of things they'll throw in there. They'll vary them from month to month. All right, so this survey is huge, and it's very accurate on what it collects. And the reason I add this little sly thing about what the data it collects is basically how they define employment and unemployment, because you'll have critics saying that it's really not accurately measuring unemployment. And so let's talk about the basic concepts of employment and unemployment. And basically, and again, can I draw on this? Let's see. I'm going to copy this and go over to Edge so I can draw on it. So this is a nice summary right here. Nice summary. So people who are unemployed, that's who are counted as employed. people who are jobless but looking for a job. So this is very important. The United States Survey of Unemployment is an activity-based measure. In other words, you have to be actively looking for work to be counted as unemployed. And the labor force is made up of the employed and unemployed, which we've seen, and people who are neither employed nor unemployed are not in the labor force. Getting down to brass tacks here, you're counted in as employed if you did any work at all for pay. In other words, even 1 hour a week would count you as employed. And so this is one of the things that people criticize about this survey. But as long as you know this, they are accurately measuring what they say they're measuring. And they do get into some other questions during the survey about whether you'd like full-time job, how many hours you're working. And so all of that is reported if you want to see it. So all part-time and temporary work is included, as well as regular full-time year-round employment. You're also counted as employed if you weren't working in the week in which the data is measured. If you're on vacation, ill, experiencing childcare problems, on maternity leave, taking care of some other family negotiated obligation, on strike, or prevented from working by bad weather. So all of those people would be included as employed also. Now, who's counted as unemployed? Well, people are classified as being unemployed if they did not have a job, but are actively looked for work in the past month, past 4 weeks, and are currently available for work. So actively looking for work means you might contact an employer about a job interview, or go to a public or private employment agency looking for a job, or you contact friends and relatives, or a school or university employment center. So you can see this is pretty weak too. And I suppose, like contacting, if you talk to a relative, yeah, I don't have a job. I sure wish I had one. Do you know anyone? There you are, actively looking for a job. So you could criticize this like a very, very generous definition of employment. So this is more active: submitting resumes, placing or answering job advertisements, checking union or professional registers. Any sort of active look for work would put you in the labor force. Okay. All right. Well, that is a quick overview of the current population survey of employment and unemployment. And some of the links I have here in this PowerPoint slide, if you'd like to visit these sites again. Let's go take a look at the definition of the unemployment rate. It is a percentage of the civilian labor force that is unemployed. And this is important and often forgotten by students. This is not the population, but just the civilian labor force. So if we go up here to take a look at this, many people think what might be the total population, it's a percentage of, or the civilian non-institutional population. But no, the unemployment rate is the number of unemployed divided by the civilian labor force, okay? And we saw that was what, 8.4%, something in that nature. Yeah, 8.4% in August. We don't have September's yet. All right. So the unemployment data, we already took a look at that. Another frequently referred to source of employment data is the current employment statistics. And this is a survey of employers about how many people are working for them, how many full-time, how many part-time, how much overtime, whether they have any job vacancies. And I was looking for that statistic before I started this lecture, and I didn't have time enough to really track it down because it's not readily available. And that'll be important in a moment. But so there are two sources of employment data. Sometimes on the news, they're a little bit fuzzy about what source they're quoting from. All right, let's get back to some of the other measures from the current population survey. The employment population ratio is another way to look at a country's utilization of a population's labor. So you just take a look at the employment population ratio, which this is a better slide of it. It's the number of employed persons now over the civilian non-institutional population. Let's use the same thing, EPR. When we go back to this, all right, and let's use the blue one. So the unemployment rate is this divided by this. The employment rate is this divided by this. So you can see there could be confusion about this too, because many people might say, well, the unemployment rate, and let me just call that UNR, equals 8.4%. So the employment population rate must be 100 minus that, or 91.6%. And that is not true, okay? That is not the percentage. In fact, let's take a look at it. I believe we were here. Let's go back, and I have to get out of this. Boom. No, I don't want to save my changes. What? They just removed availability of this. Let's go back another one. Here we go. Let's go back another one. Here we go. Let's do all sorts of things. Civilian labor force participation rate. We'll get to that. The employment level, the employment population ratio. You see full-time, part-time, the unemployment level, unemployment rate, and you can see many others, but not all of them, all of the data. I think that's probably good. Let's retrieve the data. Let's take it to 2000. Let's include graphs and go. All right, so here's the civilian labor force. Notice this is interesting. Why would so many people be counted as leaving the labor force with the start of the coronavirus? I don't have an explanation for that, but that would certainly make the unemployment rate less. In other words, if we went here to the number of unemployed, where is that? Unemployment level. Number in thousands. If you divided these numbers, I guess it would make it bigger, the unemployment rate, given if the civilian labor force dropped, okay? Yeah. Labor force participation rate, you can see there's been a long-term trend downward in the United States, only partially due to the aging of the population. Larger and larger percent of the population is over 65, but that does not explain this huge drop in labor force participation from 67.5 in 2000 down to about 62.5 recently. And here we have the employment level. You can see that it, while dropping off by a huge amount, and people said, wow, that's never going to repeat. Well, they were quite wrong in that. Here's a drop off due to the coronavirus. Pretty shocking stuff. It has come back, but only partially, right? Less than half of the jobs have been regained. Okay. Oh, where are my graphs? And here we go with the employment I believe this is the employment population ratio. Yeah. So right before the coronavirus shut down in February, it reached 61. Then this was done right before the shutdown in March. And then you can see that drop off. Oh my God. Whew. I think we had looked at that. I don't know why this is not, maybe I put the drawing on before. And there's the unemployment rate. Here's something we want to keep track of. The number of unemployed is 13,550,000. And I need to write that down because when we talk about full employment, that will be important. Come on. Oh, I see. I left my pen on my Wacom pad. 13,550,000 people unemployed. All right, let's get back here. So we had gotten down to the employment population ratio. And the next one is civilian labor force participation rate. And it is basically the civilian labor force divided by the civilian non-institutional population. So we're back here. Let's use black here. Come on. And so basically the civilian, the labor force participation rate takes this and divides it by this. All right. Just giving you some of these basic definitions. And now we're basically going to get into a brief discussion of topic 15. And really what topic 15 is about is what is full employment? Is it zero unemployment rate? And the answer is no. And so basically this topic 15 discusses that. By the way, this is pretty interesting because in the normal flow of the economy, I'm not sure during the coronavirus, there are going to be the job turnover every month is 4 to 5 million people. That's amazing. So, in other words, these employment and unemployment statistics don't really capture the rather active labor market going on. In some ways, it's hidden. Um, so, really, what we're going to say, well, if we're at full employment and there's still unemployment, what is that due to? And the answer is basically frictional and structural unemployment. So, frictional unemployment just means unemployment due to natural frictions of the economy, which is caused by changing market conditions and is represented by qualified individuals with transferable skills who change jobs. Okay. So, this type of unemployment is higher when the economy is doing well and people who are working think it will be easy for them to find another job. So, why would you want to find another job? Well, maybe your family's moving to another part of the country and you want to be near them. Or maybe you're unhappy with your boss or the people you're working with and you think you can find a better working people to work with. Or maybe the working conditions in your current job are unsatisfactory. Or maybe you think you can make more money elsewhere. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons for you to quit a job and look for another one. And while you're between jobs, you are frictionally unemployed. In a large economy like the United States, or even in Austin, there's going to be quite a few frictionally unemployed people. Now, structural unemployment just means unemployment due to structural changes in the economy. These changes eliminate some jobs and create other jobs for which the unemployed are unqualified. So basically, there might be plenty of jobs, opportunities out there, but you may not be qualified to take the job. Okay. And if you're unemployed for that reason, that is structural unemployment. So natural unemployment is basically the natural unemployment rate is the frictional unemployment rate plus the structural unemployment rate. And this is important because we're going to define the natural unemployment rate as equal to full employment. Okay, so this is very important. Full employment exists when the unemployment rate is equal to the natural unemployment rate, which itself is equal to frictional unemployment plus structural unemployment. Okay. So, what is this? What is this number? Well, here's the big problem. The current population survey does not ask. There's no way they can whether you're frictionally or structurally unemployed. So there's no data on this. So economists usually guess that it's between 4 and 6%, but they don't know for sure exactly what the full employment unemployment rate is. And that is a term you hear bandied around. And that is, let me spell it out, the full employment unemployment rate. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, right? Full employment, unemployment. Yeah, so the full employment unemployment rate is that natural unemployment rate, which economists fight about, and it seems like none of them got it quite right. I mean, we were down to 3.4% unemployment before the coronavirus, which was the lowest that's been, I think since I'm not sure, 1950, 1948, something, somewhere in there, maybe World War II. And while prices were increasing a little, that is the CPI, not by much. Um, so anyway, that is the last one. I want to say a few more things about this full employment unemployment rate, or the natural unemployment rate. The natural unemployment rate, there are several ways to think about this. Let me add something. Let's go to the home. Let's add a new slide. And basically, if we think of the labor market and what, let me come back to draw. I think blue is okay. If we think of the labor market just in very general terms from what we had learned in chapter 3 and 4, you have the amount of labor, maybe in hours, or jobs, or people. And let's say the wage rate, this could be salary too. And you have the demand. And remember, this is in the factor market. So the demand is from business firms who want to hire labor, and the supply of labor comes from households. Now, we're in equilibrium, say this wage rate, and this amount of employment is full employment. So where the quantity supplied of labor supplied equals labor demanded at the equilibrium wage. All right. But we don't have data on that. So again, but we do have data on this. We do have data on the number of let's get rid of that. Okay. We do have the number of unemployed. The reason I'm saying this, you would think there would be no unemployed here, but actually there are people up here who would take a job if the wage were higher. Then maybe they're looking for jobs, and maybe they're counted as unemployed, right? But, and this is what I was looking for before from the current employment survey of businesses, and that is the number of job vacancies, the number of jobs businesses have open. And basically, if those two are equal, we say we're at full employment, okay? So let's call this variable A, and this variable B. If A equals B, I didn't want to write those whole terms out, then we are at full employment. All right, and the idea is maybe the job vacancies are in one part of the country, the unemployed are in another part, structural unemployment, or maybe the people who are unemployed don't have the skills for the job vacancies open, and so that's also structural unemployment. And of course, there'll be frictional unemployment too. So there are all sorts of reasons in a major economy where the unemployment rate that's measured with a survey might be greater than zero, even if we're at full employment. So let's take a look. I did look up the number of vacancies somewhere here, and I did find it. Where is it? Da-da-dun-dun-dun. I'm not sure where I put that. Statistica, was it here? Oh, gosh. I'm not even sure. I had it open before I started this lecture. You searched for this. Not monthly job. Oh, here it is. Monthly job openings in the United States. So in July, it was 16.2 million. And I wrote down August. Let's go back and see if I can find the data we were looking at before. No. Where was that? Oh, it's here. Current population survey, frequently asked questions, databases. Oh, come on. Where did I have that open? I don't know. Anyway, I wrote down, let's just use this, that there were 13 million people who 13.5 million people unemployed. And if there's 6.5 million jobs open, obviously the unemployment rate is way above the full employment unemployment rate. So let's come back here. I don't know if I have room enough to write here. Maybe I do. So A is equal to, let's just say 13,500,000, and B, the vacancies are 6,500,000. So obviously, A, the number of people unemployed is much greater than the job openings. Hence, therefore, the unemployment rate is much greater than the full employment unemployment rate. All right. And we don't know what that is. Okay. So that would coincide with what we know is going on in the labor market right now. One last thing that I want to talk about is, I didn't need two of them, is another way to measure full employment, and that is called the non-accelerating inflation unemployment rate. And the idea here, and this is hard to get this data too, is that if we draw a graph, now this is a little bit different graph than I've drawn before, and let's just say this is real GDP, and here we have a measure of the inflation rate. And so then, and maybe I'll draw a dashed line here. This is full employment output. So the idea is as the economy grows and employment approaches full employment, prices will start to rise. And after it reaches full employment, the inflation rate will really accelerate. So somewhere right in here, you know, we have this transition zone. And whatever the unemployment rate is right here, unemployment rate at this point is the natural or full employment, natural unemployment rate. And that's called NAIRU. I did look up some videos on this. Let's see. This one, we're not going to even get that complicated in this course. Let's see. I thought I had other ones. Let me see. This is 7.
High economic growth will not.
Yeah. This is not a bad one. I'll leave a link to this one, which is a little lecture I found just by using a search engine. It looks like I used Bing. Gosh, the URL is huge, but let me copy it and come back to the PowerPoint. Here we go. Let's see if I can no. Let's get rid of this one. I don't know how to type on it. Hide slide, delete slide, yeah. And then let's do a new slide with this sort of thing. Non-accelerating inflation, unemployment rate. And you know what? Let's just make the link right here. I'll add this to this. Here we go. And the address is right there. Okay. And I'll save this. Whoops. Oh, I shouldn't have saved it. I should have given it a different name. Oh well. Anyway, that's both topics 14 and 15. I will see you after the next exam when we start on the second part of this course. Until then, I hope you remain healthy and well.